Welcome into week number 3 of Every Day We're Covering. Chris Parks, SJ Munoz with you here again. SJ, good to be back talking some more football.
Yeah, another week of success, at least a little bit for some people. We probably can't relate ourselves, but as far as our advice, I guess you want to call it, that we handed out last week, I think we did pretty well. So I'm kind of getting a little bit more data points to go off here. So it should be make fun for the rest of the season. We have a little bit more to go off of than just, the preseason hype.
Yeah, everything's starting to make a little bit more sense, and you start to get some of those. I know it's not always the way to go, but those comparative scores, and you see some of that stuff, and it starts to give you a little bit better gauge. And of course, we get to see how these teams play, and that's the biggest part of it. You kind of just see the reaction and what's really going on the field, and there's just so many unknowns when a new season starts, and especially the way we talked about at the beginning of this program, how the seasons are so different now because teams are very different from year to year. And yeah, we're starting to figure some things out here, I think, a little bit. We're going to get started here by talking about the week behind us, the football weekend for us as far as is concerned, and fandom wise. I really only got one thing to say about that, and that's that I need to crack a beverage because it was not a good weekend for my teams.
Unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess misery loves company. We're in the same boat there. I'm gonna be a Yingling boy tonight. Got the just a couple of the flights, something easy drinking on a school night, but got to
Nice.
have a little bit of something after another long Saturday for both of us.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I've got the Toppling Goliath Pseudo Sue Pale Ale here. It's one of their flagships that they got famous for. Really, actually, widely known brewery up in Decorah, Iowa. It makes a lot of cool stuff. So, rolling with them here tonight. This is a Citra hop based one, and I'm a big fan of that. So that's what I'm
Yep, I've heard of
doing.
that. I actually haven't had the chance to try it yet. Oddly enough, I mean, I see it all over the place. I just never took the dive, so
But yeah,
I'll have to do that sooner than later.
yeah, give it a try. It's good stuff. I like the stuff that they do. They got a pretty cool place. I haven't been up there yet, but that's why I'm on my bucket list to go up and visit their place. They got a really cool setup up there, and it's a beautiful small town in Iowa to enjoy. Well, part of the weekend was here in Iowa with my team that I follow, Iowa State Cyclones. They were home against the Iowa Hawkeyes in the Cy-Hawk game. Didn't go the Clones' way. I'll give credit to Iowa. They did what they needed to do to win the game, and kind of knew it was going to be maybe that one big mistake that changed it, and that's what it was. There was one bad pass from the redshirt freshman quarterback Rocco Beck that he threw right to an Iowa defender who went to the other way for a touchdown, and ended up being the difference in the game with a touchdown. So you hate to see things like that hurt a young guy, but it's so hard sometimes week to week, I think, to put into perspective, like especially with your team that you follow. The first reaction is always anger, and I'm always upset, and I get really frustrated with what's going on out there. But then you get a couple days to step back and look at it and start to figure some things out. And the one thing that stood out to me that somebody said today was this is one of the youngest teams that Matt Campbell's ever put on the field, which, whatever is either his fault or, however it worked out. But then you can take away that you played really well. You came back against probably what was one of the better defenses that you're going to play all season, and had a chance at the end of the game to try to drive down to at least tie it. So, there's some positive things to take away from, but definitely some frustrating things when you're in the midst of it as well. And I'm sure you can relate.
Yeah, definitely. I think perspective is a good way to, kind of a good term to lean on there. Obviously, kind of the same issues seem to creep out that we talked about before. Just my perspective, just kind of going along those lines. Call it what you will, but I think that was definitely a great chance, at least a good chance, if you don't want to say great. That was a winnable game. There's a chance there to do something and kind of shut up all that hype. But I mean, you found a way to piss it away again, and you can't blame anybody but yourself. So you got to give credit to the other team, but at the same time, like you said, the frustration's there. But I guess you just got to kind of take a cold beverage, crack it open, and just sit back and hope things get better. Because I mean, it's especially in my or with Nebraska and the the team I follow with where we're at in this situation. It's game two. We're not that far into the whole process of a new coach. So I mean, it sucks because it's been an ongoing, lingering issue. But like I said last week, it's just that's one on him. Now it's two on him. At 3 and 4, then we kind of becomes a trend, but still, it's two for him. But like to see maybe a number on the other side of the column here this week.
Yeah, and I'd see a comment, from him afterwards that this is kind of what you're going to get with me. This is a long term thing, and it's not necessarily going to be turned at a drop of a hat. Unfortunately, we've seen so much of the hype on the other side of that game, and exactly that has happened at Colorado.
Right,
He
right.
came in and changed it right away. So there's still a long way to go with that too. I mean, nobody's still I. If you're smart, you're not writing the whole story for the Buffaloes yet either. But
No, not at
um,
all. I mean, it's 2 games. The 2 teams they beat could very well not even make a bowl, so, I mean, it's calm
yeah,
down maybe, but do what you got. I mean, you won 2 games, celebrate all you want, so, I mean,
yeah.
it's a long season.
Well, for every team, yeah, a lot of season left, so we got a lot of stuff to look forward to. One thing I did want to mention too that we really hadn't talked about the first couple of weeks, even though we kind of alluded to it, was maybe it is starting to show. I think a little bit here for some of these teams, like for Iowa State, who went through a off season gambling issue. The DCI got involved with a bunch of players from both Iowa and Iowa State in different sports that were all lost their eligibility essentially because they were either underage gambling or gambling on their own team. Lots of things that were improper, and it makes a lot of sense. But that did make a young Iowa State team even younger. Not to say that those guys were gonna make the difference, and I did believe there were other guys on the roster that were gonna make maybe bigger impacts than those guys at the end of the day too. But it certainly doesn't help. When you're a coaching staff that's trying to build things year to year, you plan on certain things, you're working with certain guys, and then that changes at a dime and changes the whole dynamic of your team. And of course, you don't know how the rest of the guys are dealing with that too. And I think that has shown up a little bit now for Iowa State because they've lost some players, and how is everybody reacting to that? Because the news keeps coming out, like, oh, now we know this guy's suspended for 6 games. This guy's left and he doesn't have any eligibility. It's just one of those things that drags a little bit.
Well, injuries is one thing too, or other things that come up, academics and things of that sort, transferring, just not being happy with where you're at. But you throw a gambling issue into the or illegal gambling is the way we want to put it, because obviously we're not going to condone or what do you call it? Yeah, we're not going to you know say bad things about gambling. That's kind of part of our shtick here, right? But you do it the right way and do it legally.
Yeah, yeah,
That's where we're at with that. But that's another thing that with more states legalizing it, it's just another issue to to have to worry about and pay attention to. And even some of the Iowa players, I know a transfer to Nebraska basketball was from
hmm
Iowa, and he's kind of up in the air. What's gonna? I mean, from all indications are he's probably not going to end up playing for. The transfer's not going to be able to go through. But I mean, right now there's no an official decision on that. But so I mean, it might have happened in one state, but it's kind of affecting other places at the same time.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting, and of course, it's been a big focus here in the state of Iowa because that's where it started. The DCI got involved because of the underage thing, and then it took off from there. Haven't seen it happen in other states, but obviously, it's a topic of conversation. Like those places know that stuff has been going on, I'm sure, with a lot of athletes across the country. It's not just happening in the state of Iowa. So, how are they kind of looking at that and preparing for the possibility of that? I don't know how different states were, scrutinizing it, or if they were kind of maybe taking a closer eye once they heard the stuff, break in Iowa. But that's got to make every coach around the country a little bit uneasy. And certainly it gives you that teaching moment opportunity to sit these guys down and say, hey, if you've done this, turn it around because we've seen exactly what will happen to you if you get caught.
Well, and it can even become a type of insider information type of situation where if a player, someone related to the team's giving intel to maybe a relative or a friend of an injury that's not made public. I'm guessing that's kind of where the Big Ten's decision to go with basically the NFL style of injury report before the game is coming from, just to kind of make sure things are on the up and up as much as you can. I'm assuming that's kind of where what's that targeting.
Yeah, and that's interesting too because that's the other side of how the entire game is not necessarily changing, but just the way that we perceive it and look at it. Like you said, injury reports, all this stuff is that much more important because states have legalized that betting, and people have money on the line because of it. And then if that's not reported properly, then where do we draw the line in the gray area of what's right and what's wrong? It's kind of tough to do.
Well, you're going to get the Belichick type too. That's putting everybody on the injury report regardless. So, I mean, who knows what you can all put into it? But I mean, got to do what you got to do, I guess, to get an edge. But I mean, I appreciate the attempt to make everything as transparent as possible. But obviously, that's never going to be 100% possible. But we'll take what we can get. Any leans or information I can get to help my plays, I'm glad to take it.
Yeah, yeah.
Legally, of course, legally, I should
Legally,
say.
yeah,
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 yes,
yeah, yeah. Tom Brady's never been not been questionable for a start in his life,
yeah.
right? Yeah, that's the way it goes. So yeah,
There's a lot of
interesting
questionable things
wrinkle.
about him. I'll agree to that. Yeah.
So interesting wrinkle at all this. It'd just be interesting to see down the line if any more of that kind of pops up here down the road. Hopefully, it's all said and done and over with pretty much here in our state. But guys are learning their lesson the hard way. That's for sure. Of course, over the weekend, there were some interesting results. One of those happened to be the game that we were kind of looking at, and we were not very correct on, and that was the Texas Longhorns going into
I don't think we're
Tuscaloosa.
alone. We're not in that boat alone.
No,
I mean, what sun shines on a dog's butt, but I mean, Texas did look good. Give them credit. I
yeah,
mean, they look like a better team. And honestly, the thing that really stood out to me the most was the quarterback play from Alabama.
hmm
The lack of, I should say. It's been a long time. I mean, that picture's been floating around a lot lately of Mac Jones and Tua and Hurts because I mean they're all kind of blowing it up in the
uh-huh.
league right now. That's kind of been floating around. They nowhere close to that on this team's roster. Any talent to that level, and not saying he couldn't having a great season and be a good quarterback even through his career, but I mean just that the elite level of quarterback that they've had, there's definitely a noticeable drop off. And on the opposite side, Texas hasn't had a quarterback like that in quite some time.
Yeah, that's interesting because it's so much to live up to for a guy,
Right.
And Milrow, I mean, yeah, he's probably a pretty good player, but they expect greatness. They've had greatness in that position, so
Just seeing him throw interception, couple here mistakes that obviously had 3 or 4 games on at the same time. So I'm not just devoting my attention to one game, but just you look up and it's a mistake. Look up, it's another turnover. It's you don't see that from Nick Saban quarterbacks very often.
yeah. Well, and like you said, Texas has been waiting for a while. Quinn Ewers, they thought maybe was kind of be the guy. Last year was kind of difficult because he went through some injury stuff, and then now finally he's kind of settled in, and yeah, it looked pretty good. Texas, I really surprised me with the number of playmakers, especially at wide receiver. I mean, he threw it to like I think it was 7 or 8 different guys during the game, so it was a pretty well balanced game for him. That's for sure.
Well, and you could see maybe Texas pulling a late field goal or something, kind of just maybe squeaking by one. But I mean, by the middle of fourth quarter, it was there
Yeah,
was
it was
no
over.
doubt that was their game. It was over. So that was even kind of maybe add a little bit more to the keep an eye on this Texas team as the season progresses, because that was a pretty emphatic win early, and they haven't done that a lot in these type of early season matchups against non-conference opponents. It's usually been the opposite. They've been on the short end or disappointing performance. So they might have something cooking this year.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch for sure. Another team that we had our eye on that needed some late heroics to get it done for us was the Oregon Ducks. They went on the road, got one against Texas Tech, but it wasn't easy.
No, but you love to see it. That was one of those covers for the ages, especially being this early in the season. Oh, I mean, they struggled, and honestly, like Tech showed me something there. They was coming off that disappointment at Wyoming. They came to play like they were in it to the very end. So hats off to them. Obviously, they still lost, so I'm sure they're not feeling too good about it after the fact. But still, like that was a tight game, and what a way to for our advantage. I mean, Oregon just wanted to get the win. Of course, they don't care about the cover, but from my perspective, what a way to do it.
Yeah.
That was just amazing.
Yeah, always great when you see it go your way, that's for sure. Also, this one kind of depending on where you had it, I unfortunately had it in the wrong place. The Utah matchup on the road against Baylor. The way Baylor kind of biffed it the week before, I really thought Utah, and they look good, would come in and just kind of roll them. But it was a close game, and they only got it done by a touchdown. And I actually ended up with a hook that got me at 7.5. But you had it at 6.5, so it just kind of depended where you got it and when you got it. That one might have worked out.
Kind of like story of life, timings of the essence, right? Like I just kind of happened to be in the right place at the right time. But like you said, Baylor, I mean, they definitely kind of the same boat Texas Tech was. They put up a much better showing, and that's what we were talking about earlier. How you said like, yeah, you can't really compare scores. Every week's different and just matchups and styles and things of that sort. But I mean, just the way they lost in the first week of the season, there's no way that you thought they were gonna put
Yeah,
up any type of fight.
no.
So credit to them for coming to play. But I mean, still obviously same thing as Tech took the L, but they were in it I mean, they were in it, had a chance to win it. So
Yeah,
I mean, that's all you can ask, I guess, when you take the field.
no doubt. All right, what else am I missing here from last week that we had in our pick
I
sheet?
we did the one I was leaning towards that. We're not gonna official pick, but Miami plus 4.5 against A&M. But I did go on the show with the overs and shoot, Miami dang near hit the overs on their own, 48.5. They put up 48. So that we hit on the overs there. And I did, like I said, I like that plus 4.5 for Miami. Just kind of the fact where I was leaning on Texas too, just in the big games when it's been a marquee non-conference opponent, they have not fared well in recent time. And A&M in this case lived up to that billing, just kind of another flop, another kind of lackluster performance, if you will. I mean, Miami looked good though. Don't want to take anything away from them, but it was kind of seeing that one coming. So I was glad we threw that one out there for the listeners last week.
Yeah, that's boy, that's a tough one for A&M fans to swallow. I think that was the one where they're kind of like, is this Jimbo Fisher thing going to work? We need to get a big win like this, and they kind of just lay a dud egg again. Didn't play very well in that game at all, and that's yeah, they're starting to get antsy. I think they're in College Station a bit.
Well, I mean, you're getting to the point where you're gonna. It's not early in the process like we talked about earlier. For in Nebraska's case, like they're 2 games in. He's had time there to get a recruiting class in and build something, and they're still continuing to see these kind of flops. I can imagine just getting a little restless there because they're not afraid to throw some money out there to get rid of somebody or get who they want. So
Yeah.
maybe that seat's probably a little bit toasty and just going to get warmer as the season goes on, as if games like that keep happening.
Well, and I'm sure it doesn't help the fact at all either that the place where he came and won a national title suddenly resurrected their program again in Florida State and looking pretty good. So that's probably
Like
getting
we
under
said,
their
it's all
skin.
about timing, right? It's all about the timing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Crazy, crazy stuff. Well, we're going to dive into looking at some games here this week as well, and I think we got a pretty good platter here coming up here for you. So I guess we'll just kind of go back and forth. I'll throw one out here to get the ball rolling here a little bit. One that I came across that I liked quite a bit once I saw it, just because this team I think has been a little bit maybe not surprising. I don't want to say, but have lived up to their billing so far this year and might be better than people think. Oregon State has played really well early this season. DJ Uyunglele, who was at Clemson, is now there, and that's looking like a good decision for
Yeah,
him here so
definitely.
far.
Yeah, he's not regretting that at all right now.
No, and he's played really well. That's the
Yeah.
thing. I mean, he had some games last year where he really struggled at Clemson. So
Well, and I mean, it might not be all him, but what we're
yeah,
seeing right now, like it's obviously wasn't on. I mean, of course, quarterback gets all the credit and all the blame at the same time. So,
hmm
but yeah, looks like he made a right choice. There's no doubt about that.
yeah, they're playing well. They've looked really good. San Diego State has not looked very good. That's who their opponent is this week. Oregon's given a lot. They're laying 24, but I like it. They've looked really good, and I think that's one that you can probably feel pretty good about laying down a big number on.
So I'm gonna feeling pretty good. This sometimes you just gotta pad your bankroll a little bit. So that's that's where this one's coming from. Penn State on the money line versus Illinois seems a pretty sure bet there. I might even I'm toying with the taking the minus 15. Especially, I mean, I know they made a run at the end, but they were getting mollywhopped by Kansas. Illinois was last
Yeah,
week. So if I mean, no, I know Kansas improved and better than what they have been, over the last, dozen and a half games or so. But at the same time, if Kansas is manhandling you like that, what do you think of Penn State, who's a top 10, top 5, some people playoff contender, is going to do to you? So that's kind of like I said, it's not going out on a limb or nothing, but I mean, when it's there, you got to take the easy wins, right?
yeah. I had that one on my list too, so I'm with you there. Yeah, the Illinois just has not looked very sharp, anyway, which is kind of surprising because they had that season last year that kind of got them back on the map a little bit. Like maybe they're getting things in the right direction,
Mhm.
but part of that too was they were very senior laden. They kept
Right.
talking about all season long how old this team is, and now that's obviously not the case anymore. So, yeah, that's a good one there to look at with Penn State. Another one that I had on my list here that I think this one is also pretty easy money. It's a combination of distraction and one team being a lot better than the other. Washington's laying 16 at Michigan State. Obviously, Michigan State is not a healthy situation in any regards right now. They haven't been playing very well either, and Washington looks like a pretty solid ball club. Penix there was running the show really well. They've put up a lot of points so far. I don't think that's going to be too much of a problem for them to cover that there against a team that's probably pretty reeling.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation to say the least. That Michigan State these days, and get into it later if you want, or even now, just conflicting reports. But either way, there's some big issues going on there. I can kind of see that when getting away from, and maybe even the season getting away from, depending on how this Mel Tucker deal shakes out.
Yeah, and well, I guess we're on it, so we might as well talk about it. But it's obviously the university itself has not had its unfair share of situations that have been similar. There's been all kinds of sexual abuse scandals involved with the university, and they just can't seem to get away from it. You know, Mel Tucker came on the scene, had a great first season. They got a big win over Michigan. Everybody got all hyped up. He got this giant contract that they threw at him right away without, much kind of much evidence in reserve. And then it's gone south since then, as far as performance is concerned. And then now we get reports that he's doing all kinds of nasty things to a woman on the telephone, and just unbelievable. And it came out right away that they were letting him go. Now they're saying that he's just maybe suspended, but we all know how this is going to end. He's going to be gone. You can't keep a guy around when that kind of stuff's come up and going around your team. But it's such a hard thing. You never know how a team is going to react, because sometimes they rally and they do well with another guy too. But this is just stuff that has gone on so long at that university, and now added to the fact that you haven't performed on the field, I just got to imagine this thing's going to roll downhill in a hurry.
Yeah, I mean, obviously not naive to the fact that crazy stuff like this goes on. Things happen. Doesn't matter what position you're in, or if you're looked at in a certain light to be a leader of men or what have you. We're all, I'm not condoning. Don't get me wrong, guys. Messed up, and I didn't want to get too deep in the details because it's very strange. But I mean, I don't want to say like these things happen, but it's like I guess I don't look at it put on a pedestal like maybe some people do when it comes to certain positions. It's like I mean, if I'm a Michigan State fan, I'm saying get this over with as quick as possible. Get him out of here. It's embarrassing. There's no place for that. So I mean, that'd be kind of my perspective. I guess that's the way I'm looking at it. It's get him out of town and let's try to move forward the best we can. But I mean, the thing with it too is I just don't know that they're a very good team. So distraction or not, it might have been a rough season, and then you put this on top of it, it's gonna kind of just amplify that.
Mm-hmm. Well, and what's so sad about the story is, not only is he doing something that's wrong, no matter who he's talking to, but he's doing this with a woman who is an advocate for people that have experienced sexual violence. So it's just like adding insult to injury. Like, how could you be that naive and stupid to think that this was something you're going to get away with and be okay? Well, and even to have, of course, he's claiming that things were consensual, but even to have that kind of relationship with somebody that I think he had brought in to maybe even discuss with the team the issues, you don't go there. You just don't do that.
Yeah, it's not.
Unreal. I don't know. Sometimes people's minds, we don't know how they work, and we're going to keep it that way.
Yeah, let's stay out of that brain as much as we can. I don't want to go anywhere near that.
No doubt. All right. What do you got next for us?
Oh, another one where I'm not going on a limb, but I'm going to take the points on this one. So maybe a bit of a stretch considering how the team rebounded last week. I'm going to go Duke 18.5 over Northwestern. Like I said, another not a big stretch for Duke to take them out, but maybe the point total. Because I mean, give Northwestern credit. They put up some numbers last week after a disappointing game one against Rutgers. So give them a little bit of credit for coming out and going to blow out, because they've had their own issues, obviously with their coaching situation. Just the conference of scandals. I know Bill Walton likes to call or former Pac-12 the Conference of Champions. I guess now it's going to be the Conference of Scandals. So, I mean, if you put it out there, you got to live up to the information that's out there. But I mean, I'm going to take Duke 18.5. They looked really good in their win over Clemson. I can imagine. I mean, as long as they're come ready to play, I can see them putting up a big number on Saturday.
Yeah, I agree. And that was so odd last week. I like you said, give Northwestern credit, but they were a home dog in that game to UTEP. A home dog to a team that hasn't been very good.
Yeah, no disrespect, but it seemed like Northwestern just on their. I'm sure they've been a home dog numerous times, but for it to beat a UTEP is kind of the catch there. Is kind of a little bit surprising. This one got one more for you. I guess this for my plays. I'm going to give you a sicko pick later. But for one that's a little bit more, maybe a little more risky, maybe not, depending on your perspective here. But I'm Tennessee 6.5 against Florida. Florida obviously didn't look great against Utah, but Utah is I mean, maybe a playoff chance there on the outside looking in, perhaps maybe a team that's got a chance to do some damage at the come November, December. So give Tennessee though. I think they just got too many weapons and too many big plays there. I don't think Florida can keep pace on. They're kind of going the opposite way that Florida State might be going.
Yeah, I think you're right. That'll be an interesting game to keep an eye on for sure. It's definitely one of the more interesting matchups we have this week. Unfortunately, the week 3 schedule, as I was going through it, wasn't quite as appealing as the first couple of weeks. So we'll slog through it, but that's sometimes the way it goes. A couple of them I just wanted to mention real quick because I thought the lines were interesting. Well, and this one's not an interesting game at all, but Vandy was only laying 4 at UNLV. UNLV perennially a really bad team, and they haven't proven much otherwise yet this season. So I kind of would like to play Vandy there. And then the other one I thought was interesting. Obviously, Georgia is the team to beat, but they're giving 27.5 to South Carolina this weekend. And I was like, boy, that's a big number. I mean, South Carolina's not a bunch of scrubs. Like, I think they can hang within that point total. I don't know that Georgia would run up a score like that on them.
Yeah, I definitely. I was taking a look at that one as well. I think that's a great number to keep an eye on. Is Man, no, it's obviously Georgia right now. They're kind of the cream of the crop, if you will. But that's a very, especially for a conference, in
Yeah,
conference matchup. That's a huge number.
yeah, no doubt. It'll be an interesting one to look at. All right, well, we're all sickos. Obviously, we've been talking about on this program. So, what's your sicko pick for us this week?
Well, this is definitely falls in the ranks of that. We got UConn and FIU, so not one that we typically have on the slate. And full disclosure here, I may not be watching. I don't know if I can find it. I don't know what kind of streaming deals they have, but definitely have the mobile apps going where I can find it. But FIU is getting 9 points. I'm gonna go ahead and say they can cover that. I don't know. We'll see. Take a chance. I just,
Uh,
UConn's not exactly the tradition. I mean, if we're talking basketball here, it's
yeah,
one thing.
yeah. I mean, coming
But
off
I'm
Natty,
gonna
but
take I'm gonna take FIU and +9. Like I said, it's a sicko special. As you can tell by my uh, breakdown here, I don't have a ton of confidence, but it seems like a big number for teams like that don't exactly put up a lot of points typically.
yeah, it will be kind of a weird, funny line to watch. That UConn has struggled so much in the past, but Randy Edsall back there, correct? He's trying to
Yes.
resurrect the program again, as he did once before. He'd made him respectable for a couple of years, so it'd be interesting to see how that goes. You mentioned the finding the game kind of thing. I have to give a little nod to there's another pod that I like to listen to on a regular basis that covers the sport, and one of the main guys' jokes is always like, yeah, well, that next TV deal for the American might be on Cheddar News at the gas pump. That might be where you find that one. Who knows? Oh man. But as we wind down the show here this week, I guess I just and we didn't really talk about this beforehand, but I would just kind of see maybe where we're both kind of thinking what we have seen so far this year. Maybe a team that has surprised you, or who you still think is going to be in that mix for the playoff run here down the stretch. Maybe any new teams that you're feeling like are in that mix, SJ.
Yeah, yeah. It's quick though. Before we move on from the
Okay.
picks, I want to throw an NFL one at you,
Okay.
if you don't mind. Just backtrack. I know we saw and get the NFL people involved last week, so we'll go ahead and do that after seeing a little bit of a week of action, not quite a full week. I mean, as we record this, we got the Monday Night Football going on, and ooh, we'll have some stories to tell about that game next week because there's a lot happening already within just the first couple plays, and so we'll talk about that next week though. But I like Detroit -5.5 against Seattle. Obviously, maybe recency bias coming off, the performance Seattle drubbed yesterday by Cooper Cupless Rams team. Kind of makes you wonder a little bit about what their season's going to look like. So I'll take Detroit 5.5. I like that number right there.
Yeah, I was shocked by that Seattle game. Actually, kind of bit me. I put a little three-team parlay together in the afternoon games, and that was the one that I had because Seattle, I think, was laying like 5.5, and I thought, well, no Cooper Cup on the Rams. They haven't
Mhm.
exactly been tearing it up as of late, so yeah, give me a chance. Geno Smith, Metcalf, they got to get something going, right? Yeah, they did not look good at all. By the way, did you see that clip of the hot mic with Geno Smith when Donald got free up the middle on him?
Oh, I mean, do you blame him though? Honestly, I
No,
mean, at
no.
least, I mean, I'm sure he's not the only quarterback that said that or thought that, or probably much worse.
I know, that's exactly what I would have thought. That was awesome. I love the candidness of that. That was pretty cool. You get a big man like that trucking at
I
you.
have a few.
Whew.
Oh yeah, you having a few choice words for your line,
Yeah,
between plays there in the huddle. Like, dude, do something. Like,
exactly.
if
Like,
all the people I mean, I know he's great. He's one of the best defensive linemen to ever play the game. At the same time, triple team him if you have to. That's one guy I don't want running a free shot at me.
yeah,
I'll take my chance with anybody else on that defense.
yeah, no doubt.
No, no disrespect to the rest of the players, but that's one guy I know he's great for a reason, but to give him that
Yeah.
that open shot is kind of crazy. But
Hmm.
as far as teams this year, I mean, his performance, obviously I'm not, I'm never going to get on their bandwagon. Don't consider me a fan, or I'm not going to root for them by any means. But Texas, that win was impressive. You can't overlook how the way they did it, and then to do it to Alabama on top of everything. Maybe it's not the Alabama that we're used to seeing over the last decade or so, and that maybe we may find out that to be the case. But at the same time, you got to take it for what it is. And I mean, second half especially, I'd say they dominated that game pretty much from the at least midway through the third quarter on, and then Florida State as well. I don't know. Same thing we can say with every team. We don't know what they got, but we can only judge about what we've seen, and that was another thing that I like the most about them is just the way they're playing. I know it's sportsmanship's a thing for some people, and that's important, but I mean they're make it look good while you're doing it.
Yeah, definitely a team to keep an eye on. I was really impressed the way they played that second half. That was interesting. Yeah, and as far as the national picture, I obviously agree with you that that win for Texas is not something you can just shuff off and say it's no big deal because they went on the road and did it and looked good doing it. So they'll be in the conversation if they can keep it together. It's just their history the last few years has been to not keep it together. So it'll be interesting to see this year how it goes. One team I have been impressed with, a lot of people were kind of hyping them before the season. It was kind of like, it's a wait and see, and it's still a wait and see, I think. But Penn State has looked pretty good. I was really impressed with that win in week one over West Virginia. Not that I think West Virginia is a great team. I know that they're going to struggle this year again, but the way that they beat them just kind of took care of business, and it wasn't much of a problem for them. They're certainly going to be a team that's going to get in that mix there in the Big Ten because I think there's just still a lot of question marks there on those big teams. How good is Michigan? How good is Ohio State? We don't really know yet, and they're gonna make things fun. I think in that those few games that they play.
Yeah, I think just with the early goings of the season, we just have to look about the how, not the what. So basically, the way a team's winning is the how I'm going to judge, and I think you're kind of along the same lines there. Just maybe not so much dominant, but if you do what you're supposed to do, take care of business. Doesn't have to be a 50 burger or nothing like that. But I mean, just doing what you're supposed to do. Because even every Saturday, man, you
Yeah,
never know what's gonna happen. I mean, I know the movie is called Any Given Sunday, but dude, Saturday is greater than Sunday because you literally have no idea
yeah.
what's going to happen. So, I mean, to come out and beat a team by, whether we're covering what we're talking about here or just beating them soundly,
Hmm.
I think that deserves a lot of credit because it's not an easy thing to do. Week in and week out to go out and do what you're supposed to do. That's probably the hardest thing to do is just do what you're supposed to do.
No, yeah, exactly. And another thing I would mention early on in the season here too, it's unfortunate because of what's happened over the summer, but one of the big storylines is how well the Pac-12 is playing, and all their teams have looked pretty good here so far. And it's a damn shame. You think if this was kind of the way it started a couple of years ago, are they having this same conversation that we had over the summer? You just never know. It's unfortunately winning is everything, and recent memory is everything, and But give them credit. They're all playing well. I mean, Washington State went on the road and beat Wisconsin this past
All
weekend.
right.
I mean, those teams are playing really well. They've certainly responded to it. That's for sure.
Well, I think with the talent and then just some of the personalities that have kind of showing up here in the last few weeks, just they'd be finding some kind of a TV deal had it been this happened maybe last year, the year before, even just a few weeks earlier. But I mean, it is what it is. I guess we
Yeah.
just have to adjust and move on. But it's nice to see some quality football after dark these days. Because don't get me wrong, I'll watch football all day if it's worth watching.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's hoping things out for sure here this year. We'll hope that continues throughout the season. All right, well, that's going to wind down week number 3 of Every Day We're Covering here with Chris Parks, SJ Munoz. We hope that you continue to do all those fun things that help us out, like, subscribe, share with your friends. We certainly would like to connect with more of you. We'll share this out on social media so you can connect with us in that way as well. My Twitter handle is at CherokeeCP. And SJ, I'll let you give yours as well. So hopefully folks can reach out and have some fun with us.
Yeah, and also go ahead and give us a rating. 5 stars would be preferred, but whatever you feel, we'll take it. You can find me at SJM Bets, and that's on Twitter. That's basically the most social media I use. And for those online to follow me on Twitter, I'll probably have some UFC picks here this weekend too that I like. So stay tuned for that as well.
All right, as we'll do it here for week 3 of Every Day We're Covering. Join us again next week for some more covers.